A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. How things change. The book of Genesis tells stories of our ancient ancestors, explaining the beginning of the world, the rise and fall of urbanization, and our lineage of faith. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's one of the refrains that rings throughout Scripture to remind us that we come from somewhere, from someone's. Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. The last 14 chapters of Genesis tell the story of Joseph, Jacob's youngest, born of Rachel, whom he loved and who his brothers resented. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery in Egypt, but the joke was on them when Joseph won the favor of Pharaoh and became a key official, guiding the whole Egyptian empire through a devastating famine. His success even saved his own starving family when they journeyed to Egypt in search of famine relief. The multi-layered story culminates in family reconciliation, and Genesis ends with Joseph's death. So today we turn the biblical page to a new book, Exodus, and the next part of the story. Jacob's progeny were fruitful and prolific in their Egyptian home, the story begins. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. And as new generations grew, new leadership took hold. Now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. See, relationship matters. Story and history and legacy matter. People matter. And people have a tendency to forget, to take for granted, to fear the unknown. People change, and it makes all the difference. The new king did not know Joseph, or what he had done for all the Egyptians, or maybe he just didn't care. Whatever the case, the new king had a new approach, born of fear and of his desire to hold on to power by oppressing others. This ancient story strikes a little close to the bone this weekend here in Canada, given the economic shocks we're living through. After decades of being part of what for most of us was a safe, comfortable, and prosperous world order, things have changed. A new king arose over the American empire, and geopolitical and economic realities have changed fast. Born of the British Empire, adopted by the American one, we have lived the good life for several decades. Now, of course, as soon as we say the designation of we is spoken, it maybe needs to be qualified. Who is this we who know the good life? Perhaps not the indigenous people whose land we stole, whose people we infected with smallpox, and whose children we abused in so-called schools. Perhaps not the Japanese people whose property we confiscated and who we interned out of our own fear and prejudice. Perhaps not any number of gender or racial minorities, or so many young people today, whose prospects for the good life are much lower than our own, even before the new king arose. Empires are most obvious when the modes of control are harsh, wrote theologian George Rieger recently in a short essay introducing a new online course hosted by Tripp Fuller of Homebrewed Christianity. When an empire's mode of control is harsh, Rieger calls it empire hard, as we are seeing with our southern neighbor these days. He notes, however, that there is also empire soft. Empire does not stop being empire when the modes of control turn soft, Rieger explains. It's just harder to see. It's also, I might add, easier to deny being part of. Empire soft is how you recruit kind and decent people into the service of empire without firing a shot. It is, in fact, how Christianity itself became part of the Roman Empire back in Constantine's day. The church was not defeated by empire, Rieger explains, it was funded by it. And funding worked better than any defeat could have. so the church became the empire. Likewise, the Anglican Communion around the world exists because of British imperialism and its combination of empire hard and empire soft. Our good life continued and grew alongside, even as part of American dominance, American empire, hard and soft, depending on who you're talking to. Now a new king arose, and things changed. The Israelite people are oppressed with forced labor to build monuments for Pharaoh, and still the Israelites remain strong. So the king moves on, employing new and deadly strategies. He commands Hebrew midwives to kill male Hebrew babies as they are being born. Here's the thing, though. Even in the worst, most oppressive and violent circumstances, there is something that empires can't take, that empires can't control. George Rieger calls it the surplus, theological or Christological surplus. There is something that pushes beyond the status quo, he writes, and produces alternative ways of living and believing. In our story today, it's the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, who are heroes. They believed in and feared God more than the king of Egypt. And so they made the risky and courageous choice to disobey the king's command. Believing in a God of life, they chose life. And when they were questioned about it, they lied, knowingly, intentionally. These women, Shiphrah and Puah, remember those names. Shiphrah and Puah are the picture of resistance to empire. With quiet determination and deception, perhaps under the cover of incompetence, it just happened. Yeah, Pharaoh moved on with another strategy of oppression and death. But that doesn't diminish the example that Shiphrah and Puah offer to us. If we want to know what do we do now, how do we survive, even thrive in the changed circumstances we find ourselves in, we can look to those who have long resisted empire, the empire we supported and benefited from, even unwittingly. People like those in the LGBTQ+ community, Indigenous people and other people of color, all manner of people on the margins of society. If we want to make our world, our society, our local community better, then it's not about going back to wielding empire's power. It means seeking peace with justice through sacrificial love. It means courageously choosing life and love for all people, for all creation, over our own comfort and security. There is no one magic bullet that will defeat the power of death, the power of empire. But there are thousands of loving and courageous actions that we can take in the service of life and in the service of the God of life for all people and indeed for all creation.